I'm Shoestring Jane. Welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things thrifty, frugal and sustainable. Today I thought I'd look at trends and why you shouldn't follow trends. And this is because something popped up when I was going through my eBay accounts this morning about trends, fashion trends for spring 2025. And I thought, that's something I never take any notice of. And then I thought a little bit more about it and was thinking, this whole thing that you need to renew your wardrobe with each new season. Like, it's spring 2025, you need to get the most fashionable things possible, is so damaging to both our finances and the planet, because obviously it's not sustainable to keep chucking out your clothes and buying new clothes because a magazine or an influencer or some aspect of the media tells you that this is what you need to be wearing this season. And I think I will never be fashionable. I've never really been fashionable. I've never really been into that whole follow the trend thing. Not because I'm some kind of, I don't know, I'm not some fashionista. I don't say, right, this is my style and I'm going to stick with that. Just because really I could never be bothered. And I was very quirky as a teenager. My mum will tell you she used to like throw her hands in the air and say, you're not going out wearing that quite a lot, but not because I was going out wearing some tiny mini dress or something like that, but because I had been to the charity shop and got myself a big old man's jacket or some weird hat, or, you know, I loved shopping in the charity shops from as soon as I could think about actually being independent and going to buy stuff and with my own money. Charity shops, jumble sales in those days, there were loads of jumble sales, and where I lived, my hometown, there was a regular jumble sale that I used to go to with my friends, and I always loved it, and I still love a good jumble. Who doesn't? And they're making a comeback, which is fantastic. But so I didn't want to follow the crowd then. I didn't want to dress like my big sister. Me and my sister never got on very well. We were polar opposites. We get on okay now, but we were polar opposites as teenagers, because I was a bit of a hippie and she loved all that disco scene, and her friends were all very well dressed and mine wore biker jackets and had long hair and that sort of thing. And I didn't want to be one of that kind of in crowd in that way. I didn't want to care that much about what I wore. And like I say, I would go into the Oxfam shop, buy myself a big old blanket, cut it up, put blanket stitch around it, make it into a bizarre sort of poncho, which I would then happily wear. And because my friends were all a bit weird, that none of them cared, they just thought it was part of the vibe, so it was all right. But so I've never really wanted to be a high fashion sort of girl. I've always had something better to spend my money on. But now I think it's taken a different turn, in that we didn't have fast fashion when I was a teenager, and even into my 20s. Fast fashion wasn't a thing. It was slow fashion. A lot of it was produced in the UK. It was good quality materials. Even though kind of plastics had come in terms of like polyester in the 70s and the 80s, it was still better quality and produced in the UK. And nobody could afford to just do this throwaway fashion thing. We couldn't. I mean, there was fashion, obviously there was fashion, but you would buy something and it would have to last you a bit. You know, fashion trends didn't come and go by the week like they do now. And you would get maybe something slightly different year on year. It would take a few years for things to go out of fashion. And that really, I feel like we need to get back to that. Goes back to that, I've mentioned Patrick Grant's book Less, which if you haven't read, it's such a good read, which talks about this in great detail. It's really, really a good read. I listened to it actually on BorrowBox and it was excellent. But it goes back to that idea of we've forgotten about quality and we accept anything. We accept just the poorest quality rubbish made of plastic when it comes to clothing. And it is plastic. I mean, just because it looks like cotton doesn't mean it is. It's basically plastic. Every time you wash it, lots of those little microplastics end up going down the drain and going into our water system and polluting the planet. There's lots of pollution in terms of the disposal and how we don't value those things because they're so cheap. So we're ready to go on to the next thing all the time. But it's not just clothing, is it? I think following trends is a dangerous thing, really, because you're not necessarily buying things that suit you and your lifestyle and that are kind of sensible purchases for you. you are buying things that on a whim you think that's a good idea. And I'm totally guilty of having done this. I've mentioned this before in previous videos, but I bought an Instant Pot because I'd seen a couple of YouTuber friends actually doing really well with them and cooking great things, and I thought, that's great, I'm going to do this, I'm going to use the pressure cooker element, this kind of thing. I bought it. I did buy it with birthday money, so it wasn't kind of out of my bank balance, but I used it maybe once or twice, and I thought, I'm not going to pressure cook anything. I don't really see the point of sizzling stuff in the bottom of this Instant Pot when I can just use a pan and use something on the stove. And it all felt so much more familiar to me, and I was more comfortable with that. So it sat, it gathered dust. I did try making yogurt in it, not very successfully. I make yogurt anyway, but I don't need anything. I don't need a gadget. I just make it in a glass and ceramic container with the lid on it. So I gave it to my friend Lisa, and I must ask Lisa how she's getting on, whether she's managed to use it. She asked if anybody had one or was a good one to get, and I said, please take this. It's gathering dust in my cupboard. I feel guilty for buying it. If you use it, that'll be brilliant. So I got rid of it. So I followed a trend. I bought something that if I'd stopped and really thought about it and done some research, I'd have realised that a lot of the equipment in the kitchen already did the same job. I didn't need something extra cluttering up the cupboard. So I wouldn't have saved myself, 90, 100 quid. I can't remember how much it was now, but it was a wasted purchase. It was a waste of money. So that doesn't necessarily have to be the case with things for your kitchen and gadgets. It could be anything, clothing, as I've already mentioned, just different aspects of lifestyle, things you need. My daughter is the worst, my eldest, for TikTok and TikTok trends, and Justin's sister's as bad as well. They're always buying this weird sweets and things like this that they see on TikTok, and weird rubbish plastic stuff that's sold in people's TikTok shops. And it's a very good marketing tool. I would just not get into TikTok. I signed up for it and then never used it because I don't really think it was my age group that it's aimed at. But I also just really don't like the way that it pushes that overconsumption. Although having said that, there's that underconsumption trend going on TikTok. That's the last time I looked at it, was when I did a video on that. I wanted to see what was going on regarding hashtag underconsumption. And that's a welcome one, but I still can't help but feel that it's a trend that people won't necessarily sustain, because it's some content, it's something to put on your TikTok channel. Look at me, I've had the same pair of boots for 5 years, and it's all kind of, I haven't bought any items of clothing this year and this kind of thing, which is great. But those of us who already follow a frugal lifestyle can just go, okay, and because we've got lots of items of clothing that we wear very regularly that were bought a long time ago, that we've looked after and repaired and keep using because they're perhaps classic pieces that weren't in fashion in the first place. They're never going to go out of fashion. So I kind of, I don't know, I kind of veer away from that kind of thing. I do like Instagram. I don't know why. I guess there's still a lot of, I call them influencers on Instagram that are trying to make you buy lots of things like makeup and fashion and doing hauls and things like that, but I don't follow them. I follow people who maybe do crafts, or who, like me, buy a lot of secondhand, or are frugal in some way, or like a simple life, or part of people I follow go for the slow fashion. And I don't do a lot of this. I am knitting at the moment, but I want to get back into sewing, and I look at what some of these people make, and they are taking things like old vintage fabrics, good quality, nice cotton fabrics, Sanderson fabrics, which are probably not that cheap to start with, and they're buying charity shop clothing, and they're upcycling them using these beautiful fabrics, or making something completely new from them. And I love that, and I love that kind of whole slow fashion thing. And you're making things that are kind of quirky, you're looking at what is available to you and being really creative and thinking, what can I do? And that is something I really, as I get more time, I want to get back into sewing. But it's not happened yet. I'm not going to invest in a sewing machine. I'm not going to rush to get on that trend. I shall see if our library of things that's just being set up here comes up with a sewing machine and borrow that and use it and see how I get on. I wouldn't be invested in a sewing machine until I know that I'm going to use it. I think Justin's sister's got one actually. I could probably dust hers down and borrow that for a bit. So that's another thing, you can get onto trends anyway, can't you? Oh my God, look at all these people crocheting. I must go out and buy a load of wool to start crocheting. And oh my God, all these people are making these beautiful clothes. I must rush out and invest in a new sewing machine. Stop and just think what you're going to use. Don't just follow a trend blindly. What actually suits you and what's a really useful thing? What goes with your values and ethics, and what do you want to show in your lifestyle? What do you want for yourself? What's going to make you happy? Trying to be fashionable with clothing means we just follow trends, and there's not even a trend for every season now, is it? It's like literally every week you'll have some celebrity wearing some sort of outfit one week, and Shein or Temu have produced something similar the next week, and they're making it so quickly. They're using AI to scoop up other people's ideas, like good proper designers' ideas, and make something very similar or even identical, and even use the designers' photographs and plagiarize them to sell something that's a cheap bit of tat. And this kind of thing is like buy and repeat, buy, discard, repeat, buy, discard, repeat. That's the whole fast fashion thing, isn't it? And I think it's desperately awful. I think this whole idea that you constantly have to keep up with the new trends makes you so dissatisfied, because you never can keep up, can you? You never can keep up. So you can't keep up financially, you just can't physically keep up, you can't buy enough stuff. Then you have all this stuff and all this clutter, and then you get overwhelmed with this stuff that you've got and end up chucking it away or donating to charity shops. And I buy a lot from charity shops, and then gradually filling up with really poor quality things that haven't really survived many washes and just not really worth buying. So it's harder and harder to find something good in charity shops, good quality secondhand things, which is why I try so hard to find vintage stuff wherever I can, because they were made in places like the UK and Germany when we had industries and we made things, we made good quality things, and there was no such thing as built-in obsolescence on appliances, and things were made to last. And I would love us to get back to that. I don't know how. I think you need really good government to do that, and I don't think many countries have got that. There doesn't seem to be anybody who's willing to stand up to industry and the millionaires, billionaires that own everything and say, no, enough is enough. We're outlawing this. We're not going to allow this to happen. So I think the older I get, the more I think of fashion, not just in terms of clothing. When I'm saying fashion, I'm talking about your home and things that you might like to do and that kind of thing as well. More I think of it as just kind of another form of vanity. It's just like, look at me, you've all got to admire me because I've got the latest this, that and the other. And it's not sustainable. It's not healthy. And other people then kind of aspire to those same things, and you've always got this sense of discontent. And you only have to look at the mental health issues that our young people are dealing with to think, what is that? What is the source of that? And I do think that this is part of it, this kind of constant striving for the new and the shiny. And instead of thinking, well, I'm going to buy something really good quality, it'll last me, it might be a bit of an investment to start with, but it'll last me a long time and it's classic. And get back to that kind of idea of classic wardrobes, good quality pieces of furniture, really excellent appliances, things that are repairable, and going with that rather than these cheap, just buy it now, buy it twice, it's always going to cost you more. I did come across as well, the dustman is coming through, this can be noisy, a lot of influencers going on about, saying things like they're talking about their authentic selves. That seems to be a very trendy buzz phrase at the moment. And I mean, yes, I think that's something that does come with age, that you start to be yourself, but I just don't think you can be somebody who promotes the idea of buying loads of fashion and wearing the latest fashions and living this very, very extravagant lifestyle, and also talk about being your authentic self, really, because I think you're always on the trend, you're always on the next trend, so you're going with what other people tell you you should want, and I just can't see how those two things tally, really. And I do find it really boring. I think it's not authentic. It's the opposite. It sounds so fake. And I think that the idea of bypassing all of that rubbish and just really thinking about what you like and what suits you and what suits your lifestyle, that is authenticity. So that's what I'm aiming for, really. And I don't care if I'm not fashionable. I mean, the only reason I probably don't look like a Victorian lady is because the Victorian ladies' clothing is not available in the charity shops. But I would probably go for those nice kind of very good quality cotton dresses and things, if that was available to me. So as it is, this was from Vinted. It's a little Bowden top. This was from the £1 charity shop, and sadly, it's Primark. I wouldn't have bought this new. My trousers are my jeans. They are from Vinted. My slippers were from Vinted. So I'm buying a lot of stuff from Vinted at the moment. Vinted's getting a bit more expensive now because I think that more business sellers are going on there and they obviously want to make more of a profit rather than people just selling their own stuff. But if they're selling good quality stuff, then that's fine. I'd still rather buy good quality second-hand stuff, and I'm happy to buy from a business seller because I'm a business seller on eBay, not on Vinted yet. What I was going to say about spring must-haves and what you must have for spring, I started looking at, I googled it, and I came up with it was the American version of the Elle magazine, and it was very funny, actually. Let me just get on Elle and they'll tell you what you should be buying and wearing. So what you want is a micro mini. Only just has to cover your lady bits. Something like, let's have a look. God, I hate to have legs like this, skinny and long. Something like this, what do you reckon? I don't think I'd look like that if I wore that. It also looks like it's made of like PVC. That's not great for spring, that looks sweaty. And then we've got lots of, because you've got to get a micro mini and you have to pair it with a blouson jacket, apparently. But this is the micro minis that you need to be looking at buying. Now let's have a look. One of them is a Peachy Den Kylie Skort, and that's £95 at Liberty London. One of them is a Levi's Western mini skirt, which is £70 at Liberty London. And then we have a Miu Miu cotton miniskirt, which is £920 at somewhere, My Teresa. £920 for a flipping skirt. Looks like it's made out of an old pair of chinos. It's this one. I mean, do you think it's the Emperor's new clothes, let alone new clothes for spring? It's the Emperor's new clothes. If you've got £920 to spend on a skirt, you really should be donating a lot more to charity. I hope you are. And then we have, £760 at Dover Street. We have one that looks like it's made with a bit of Indian cotton with a belt here. So, God, it's just laughable. I mean, this is why I never went for it. The other thing that's really a must-have for spring is the lingerie look. So you can go out looking like you're wearing your grandma's petticoats. Not doing that, don't you think? Emperor's new clothes, honestly. So yes, and there's all sorts of like underwear type tops and things that you can spend £100 or £170 at Selfridges on, if you were that way inclined, which clearly none of us are. So obviously I would avoid, like the plague, those social media accounts that tell you you've got to buy these things, or the influencers that are doing hauls all the time. And even some of the influencers that I have loved in the past for doing reselling stuff have now started doing things like Temu hauls and home bargains hauls and this haul and that haul, and just buying endless shite. And it's made me unsubscribe, which is such a shame. But I only was there for the reselling content, and I wanted to see the stuff they bought at boot sales, not the stuff that Temu have paid them to to go to buy, basically. And you do, I mean, I've had it several times from Temu. They've offered me vouchers in order to do a haul on YouTube or Instagram, and obviously I just ignored those emails because that's not something I'm ever going to do. I don't need a load of cheap plastic rubbish that much, really. I'd rather just go to this charity shop. So I think some social media can be good, though. It can be a force for good. Like I've already mentioned, the underconsumption hashtag and the slow fashion hashtags. So some things can be good. There's another lady I follow on Instagram. It's Knitchings. It's spelled Knitchings. And she does that whole kind of dopamine colour thing that I like, bright colours. But she also just, everything's secondhand and old and upcycled. And every now and then she'll make a crochet garland or something, and she lets her cat sit in her bread bowls and things like this. It's all very relaxed. My kind of woman, you know, she's very arty and creative and not precious. And some of these kind of at home Instagrammers I've started following for a bit because I liked the colours. I love that dopamine colours, all those bright colours. And I had to unfollow them all because, apart from Knitchings, because they were all like this perfectly beautiful wall that I did 6 months ago. I'm going to rip off all the wallpaper. Shush, Archie. I'm going to rip off all the wallpaper and start again because I need more content. And it's so wasteful. I've seen this so many times. Or they've got beautiful wallpaper and they're just painting over it, or, you know, pulling everything apart, or getting new sofas and new furniture. And I thought, no, that's not. I thought that was my vibe, but that's not my vibe. So I stick to the furniture upcyclers and that kind of thing. I like people who are a bit creative with what they've got. So I think social media can be good, but you do have to kind of really edit. I mean, it helps you, doesn't it? The more you like certain things, the more you're offered them. So in terms of what you actually want to be looking at, some of those algorithms can work in your favour, but you can also get offered more and more of the same. So it can be too much, really. I really only look at Instagram. That's the only thing I look at. Very occasionally I'll go onto Threads and have a rant, or listen to somebody else have a rant. And I do have a Blue Sky account, but nobody goes over there. It's just quiet and echoey. But yeah, you can come and join me on Blue Sky if you want. So I don't do very much, as I say. So that's my thoughts on trends and why we shouldn't follow trends. And I think what's hot in 2025, the planet. Let's focus on not consuming so much and consuming less, and save yourself loads of money into the bargain. And, you know, we're going to need to save our money because times are tough and maybe potentially getting tougher. It's a very odd world that we're living in right now. Anyway, that's a weird sort of message. I did ramble a bit, didn't I? But if you enjoy this sort of rambling, don't forget to give me the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Hit the notifications bell so you know next time I'm publishing something, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.